Welcome to the Exec Exchange, 15-minute podcast in which a leader from the water sector shares a story to inspire, inform, and educate other water sector leaders around the globe. My name is Piers Clark, and my guest today is Matt Wheeldon, Infrastructure Development Director at Wessex Water in the UK. Matt, brilliant to have you with us today.
Thanks, Piers. Great to be here.
Now, we always start with a potted history of the speaker, so give me in 60 seconds the path that Matt Wheeldon has taken to becoming the Infrastructure Development Director.
Having got a civil engineering degree, I joined an engineering consultancy, spent a lot of time working on overseas projects, and then really relocated to Wessex Water as a recently chartered engineer, and very quickly moved into senior management, moved around the company, working in operations, working in asset strategy, working in regulation. And my current role is running the part of the business that interfaces with the retailers in the non-household market. But probably most prominently, I work on the whole narrative around storm overflows and government policy and regulation to enable us to tackle solutions at source rather than end-of-pipe solutions. On top of that, I'm really keen to promote research. I sit on the Aquifer board and I head up professional development, helping young people train up to get professional qualifications.
Brilliant. Now, we're going to be talking about stormwater management, or as I think you like to call it, rainwater management. It's managing the rain problem. But before we get to that, for the audience who don't know Wessex Water, where is Wessex Water? How many people does it serve? What's the scope of services and what do you do?
So we're in southwest of England, and we basically cover Wiltshire, Somerset and Dorset and Bristol and Bath. Our wastewater business is twice the size of our water supply business. So we do both. We have about 2.9 million waste customers and about 1.3 million supply customers. We vary from very urban areas like Bristol, and then Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole on the south coast, and then a lot of rural areas in between. Interestingly, chalk is a blessing and a curse for us. It's a blessing in that it's a huge reservoir. So from a water resources point of view, we are very blessed because we capture the rain in a large area.
You just dig a hole and clean water comes out. Surely that's all you need to do.
Well, we don't do much more, to be honest. It needs a squirt of chlorine and that's about it. Obviously, standards are getting tighter, but because of the capacity of this reservoir, which is an aquifer, in dry summers, we generally do okay. However, like now, when the groundwater table is very high, it's a curse because the groundwater table is right up at ground level and it's flooding into all the sewers and we've got storm overflows happening all the time. Kind of want to love that middle ground, but we're in extremes.
Yeah, I should say that we're recording this in March 2026, just after we've had about 40 days of rain and the sun has just begun to peep out. So for those in the Southern Hemisphere, you'll be thinking, well, March is usually very hot. Of course, in the UK, we're just coming out of winter into spring. All right. Now, when I first met you at a conference, you talked about stormwater management and changing the traditional view that water companies have around stormwater management. And I wanted to capture that narrative here for the benefit of the listeners of this podcast. So walk me through the Matt Wheeldon ethos of stormwater management / rainwater management.
It struck me that there was far too much talk about sewage being dumped in the media, which has caught the imagination of everyone and is total clickbait. So I really focused on, if we want to address storm overflows, the solutions are not about sewage. The solutions are about source control and managing the rain. So it kind of took me down this journey of trying to get to the root cause of the problem and tackle it there. And what that shows us is that if you let a water company fix the problem at the end of pipe, one is it only tackles that single problem. Two, it is not sustainable. And three, you're forever going to be defending this position. The problem with storm overflows is too much rain in the sewers. I mean, that's the bottom line. And very few people actually talk about that. You get a lot of people talking about water quality issues, but this is just a water quantity issue. We have too much rain in the winter. We have too little rain in the summer. We get a roughly 800 mil to 1,000 mil of rain over the whole of the UK. The amount of water we supply our customers is about 1.6% of the rain that lands on us. And the problem is there's very few actors or organizations collecting this rain in times of plenty so that when times of scarcity, it's available to use. Then building on top of that, we've got an infrastructure network that has proved very effective at supplying all of our drinking water needs. And yet we're wasting about a quarter of it to flush our toilets. Gosh, this is high quality drinking water that's been through amazing processes, and we're filling our toilets with it. And then on the other side, we're adding this rain to the sewage. And then we've got this horrible problem with storm overflows, which clearly everyone is really annoyed about. But the problem is the way our homes are built, the way our homes are run. It's not the person who owns the home's problem. It's just that's the way they've inherited the problem from the way in which the building was built. So water companies are busy trying to solve these water scarcity and too much rain issues miles away from where the problem is. The problem is in the home.
We need an infrastructure development director to sort of try and break the cycle here. That is what we need.
Indeed. But breaking the cycle by tackling the problem at source is easier said than done. First of all, you've got to get people to start talking about it. And that's really where I've landed on these 6 words, manage rain better where it lands, to try and summarize what we need to do. Now, I don't use the words integrated, holistic, catchment, systems. These are great words for us techie people who understand it, but it doesn't fly with the public.
It alienates people. When they hear that, they immediately shut down. Joe Public will immediately shut down because that just sounds like engineering guff.
It's great words, but it doesn't fly. So manage rain better where it lands. Why? Because it's a natural resource that we're wasting. And it's based on 2 simple principles. And I try and keep the message as simple as possible. 1, rain is a resource. We should capture it, reuse it where possible. And 2, we should return it back to the environment as close to where it first landed.
Moving water from one catchment to another and thinking that we're not messing with the ecosystem and the diversity, it's criminal.
And people forget how heavy water is. It's unbelievably heavy compared to all other utilities. And we shift it horizontally, artificially. Now, obviously, rain goes downhill naturally, but we push it uphill. The water that comes to your tap in Wessex Water, we have lifted it 130 meters to reach your tap. That's a huge amount of energy. And a quarter of that's pointless because our customers are using it to flush their toilets. So trying to show people the madness of our system and what we're about to do by building 1.5 million homes in exactly the same way. And then the madness trying to fix the storm overflows by storing this rain so that we can then treat it when actually generally the ground will take it and you can start enhance how the ground takes it through soakaways. We should be looking at local disposal in order to stop the problem at source. The multiple layered benefits are huge. And we're doing lots of research work on that right now to demonstrate the benefits of managing rain better where it lands compared to the centralized solutions that we're spending billions on.
I love it. This is exactly the message you were giving at the conference where I first met you. And it's a beautiful narrative, which is why I didn't interrupt, because it's such a great story that you're telling. Now, can you bring everybody on board, not just the public and the regulators, but also the other water companies? How confident are you that you can make a substantive change to what we do? We've got embedded infrastructure and embedded ways of doing things. It's got to be a cultural shift as much as an engineering and technical shift.
Absolutely. You've got to convert the mind. And we're seeing that 2-3 weeks ago, early February. We had the water minister using those same words in Parliament.
Your magical words, manage rain better where it lands.
Yes. And then you had influential people like Dieter Helm writing about this on a paper that he posted on LinkedIn. Other companies are bought into this. Believe me, they are. Anglian Water, who have been running enabling water smart communities, which is just exactly what this is all about. British Water, representing the supply chain. They wrote a paper on managing rain better where it lands. And I'm speaking to a large number of environmental NGOs and encouraging them to repeat the message, because actually people will listen to them more than they'll listen to a water company. So I've been really encouraging the Wildlife Trust, the Rivers Trust to start, because we're all on the same page here. We don't want to destroy the environment by trying to fix a problem in the environment.
I assume there aren't really any naysayers. There isn't really an argument you can make for, oh, Matt, what are you talking about? This is ridiculous. I suppose there's an extra cost that needs to be put in, but a saving then that comes from the alleviation of all the problems that happen later on.
Long-term progressive sustainable solutions, that's what it is. And that's what happens if you do source control. Our legislation and regulation should be biased towards the right long-term sustainable solutions. And at the moment it's not. It's biased towards centralized solutions. I have not met a single person who's disagreed with the principle. So I want to get it out there. And I want everyone to start repeating this, because a common narrative that's simpler to understand will get traction. And then people will start talking about it. And then people go, well, how do we do that? How do we do it? And you can't do one single change. It's a systemic change required in legislation, regulation, education, technical guidance, and economic incentives.
Talk me through some timelines. What are you expecting to happen? What would you hope would happen over the next few years?
Legislation is already being discussed. I'm already working with DEFRA on tweaks that push legislation to be biased towards source control solutions than centralized solutions. How long it takes to go through, what actually ends up going through, we'll wait and see. Water reform regulation is ripe on the agenda. Here's an opportunity to start measuring source control solutions rather than just outputs like spills, and say, actually, the square meter removed from the combined sewer is an important metric. We should be measuring that and incentivizing that rather than just being fixed on spill numbers, because how you achieve spill numbers matters for the environment. The research that we're doing through UKWIR is really important. We're doing a project to answer this question. What is the evidence that managing rain better where it lands for both new build properties and retrofitting existing properties is better economically for society and the environment than centralized solutions? And I'm confident the answer will be managing rain better where it lands is better. So in October at the World Water Congress in Glasgow, I'm running a forum called Rainwater Management. So we are getting people from overseas who are more progressive in their thinking to come and share their experience, how they got there. I'm hoping to get one of the world's strongest men there to try and lift the weight of water that people waste each day. And I can guarantee you now he won't be able to lift it, which is quite a nice visual thing to see.
I do love the idea that this is both about being able to communicate to the technical people and explaining what they need to do. And it's a stunt. A strong man lifting 180 kilos, it'll get headlines. It will be the sort of thing that suddenly makes people sit up and be aware of it and become part of the conversation. So it's wonderful, Matt. And people who want to connect with you can either come and see you at the IWA Congress in October in Glasgow, or they can reach out to you via LinkedIn, I assume. Now, we're running out of time on this. And so let's jump to the final question, which is a contemplative one. If you could go back 20, 30 years, what advice would you give yourself?
I think the advice I would give myself would be look around at what we've got. I grew up in a privileged English background where I turned the tap on and out came water and I went to the toilet and flushed it and disappeared and I didn't care for it. My eyes weren't opened until I didn't have it. And the gap year in the middle of Kenya with no running water and no sanitation opened my eyes to that. We don't appreciate what we've got here in this country. So rather than being angry about storm overflows or water bills, it's being thankful that when I turn the tap on, this beautiful clean stuff comes out. And when I flush the toilet, I don't have to deal with that problem. Gratefulness and thankfulness bring happiness and contentment. So that would be my advice.
You have been listening to the Exec Exchange with me, Piers Clark, and my guest today has been Matt Wheeldon, Infrastructure Development Director at Wessex Water. And we've been talking about, you can either call it source control for rainwater, or a better phrase might be manage rain better where it lands. Thank you to our sponsors. And until next time, keep asking questions, keep sharing, and keep safe.